Hey, welcome to this episode of the Real Estate Crowdfunding Show, Syndication in the Digital Age. In this episode, I'm going to be talking to Kate Talbot, who is a Forbes contributor. And I came across Kate when I read an article she wrote called From Nano Influencers to Instagram Entrepreneurs, 3 Hot Trends in Influencer Marketing. So in this episode, be sure to listen out for Kate's insights into how to use Instagram to raise capital online, to leveraging Instagram for more reach, and what you need to know about social media influencers. Now, the sound quality is not absolutely perfect. We did have something of a Wi-Fi issue, and as I start to roll out this new series of podcasts using video instead of just audio, there are some technical difficulties, so do please forgive that. And before I turn you over to Kate and her insights, do please be sure to go to GowerCrowd.com and hit the Insights button top right in the menu bar and navigate to podcasts, where you'll find some advanced training on the key components to building a successful campaign to raise capital for your real estate deals online using social media as part of the strategy. That's it. This is Dr. Adam Gower, and now for Kate Talbot. Back over to you once again.
Okay.
Kate Talbot, big drum roll.
So I've been in the social media space for the last 15 years, early adapter to all the platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Have worked with big brands like Virgin America, Kiva, running their social media, and I've written a lot about social media these last couple of years. I wrote a book about Snapchat called Oh Snap with a lot of brands talking about their strategy, and I wrote a monthly column in Forbes about millennial marketing and social media.
And just of all of those, Kate, which do you consider your strongest suit?
I would say Instagram and Snapchat, anything about millennial marketing. I teach a postgraduate course through the Digital Marketing Institute in Ireland that people take a class on Instagram and Snapchat across the world. So really granular understanding and just the idea of storytelling nowadays in 10-second intervals is really what my sweet spot is.
That's interesting. Tell me more about that. How do you tell a story in 10-second intervals?
So that's the concept of Snapchat and Instagram stories, is that you're creating content that disappears. And that's really, in my opinion, the next form of storytelling and how people are consuming content. So when Snapchat came out about 5 years ago and got really big, I was one of the first people to write about it, especially for how to use for business. So I've really learned like the techniques and how to really engage your audience, and, probably applicable to your audience too. It's like conversion and taking people from this short form storytelling to creating brand affinity, and then also purchasing products.
All right, so you understand a little bit about the audience, right? These are developers who want to raise money online for large development projects from investors. So give me your kind of high-level thoughts how Instagram could be used for that.
Definitely. Well, Instagram itself is a really good platform nowadays because it has the storytelling capabilities with the stories themselves. It has the grid where you post content, and it also has direct messaging. So direct messaging is a really great way to build relationships. So of course, what you're providing is very huge amounts of capital. It's not, you're not buying a $30 watch off of Instagram. You're doing large deals that take a long time to build up, and long lead time, long relationships. So I would look at Instagram as a way to really show off your personality, show off your professional insights, and really educate your audience into what you're providing and why they would want to align with you. And you can do that in a lot of different ways with creating content that really talks about the real estate aspects and the real estate place, but also really just building those relationships and making that one-to-one connection through direct messaging and storytelling.
All right, so tell me about how that might look from a storytelling perspective. Real estate developers are used to telling their story, but they're used to doing it over lunch, right? Mm-hmm. You meet somebody, you spend days in advance, and then you get together, and then you have an hour or two, and if it goes well, you'll have some follow-up. The how does that convert to
Mhm.
Instagram? How do you do that?
So it's an interesting play right there because you're talking about these one-to-one connections that you're having lunch. So in some ways it takes away from that personalization, but in some ways it also opens up like a huge amount. You could be in Australia and somebody could be in London. You could find somebody in San Francisco or Miami. So nowadays, because of Instagram and everybody's on it, as we saw yesterday when it went down and the whole world freaked out.
Yeah,
So that's a
everything
big use
stopped.
case. Everything stopped. So at this point, we can all agree that everybody's on Instagram and everybody loves it. So it's taking those relationships that used to be, your friend, down the street that you might have gone to college with, and these relationships. And nowadays, everybody in the world is on it. So where can you find those people that you want to create these connections with? You can follow them. So you take their content in, and maybe they went on a vacation to Maui, and you email them and say, oh, hey, I love that you stayed at this resort. Me and my family stayed there, a couple of years ago. And then it's kind of a way of just getting to know them from a top level, and then building those personal relationships and taking those online to offline.
So what do you actually do on a practical basis to be effective? Again, we are talking about building a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to say, oh, that's nice, I'll send my $30 in, right? It's not the kind of thing we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So what are kind of really break it down to the granular level. What does somebody have to do to offer them, or to be compelling on Instagram, to create a compelling page or whatever it's called?
Yeah, I think in general, like if you look at influencers, people just want to get excited by aspirational content, but also be connected through authenticity. So I think that that's kind of the sweet spot, is creating content that would align with the audience that you really want to be part of. So if your audience is, 35 to 45-year-old men, probably most of the time, create content that they're going to like, going to the Giants, going to a sports game, talking about what's in the stock market, kind of creating your own audience and creating content for that, and thinking about how you can relate to them and providing value for them. You could also do, a series, like on Mondays, you could do Motivational Monday and create a story, and you do 10 seconds over and over again, and talking about what you've learned and how you can help out others in the field. So really, I think, especially with what you're trying to do, is always providing value for those around you, and then they'll want to be coming to you to learn more and build those relationships.
That's really interesting. And so there are a few different components, aren't there, to Instagram? There's the, now you're going to have to forgive me for not getting the words exactly right, as I'm learning as we go along as well. But there's the feed, which are the square photographs. And then there are stories, and there's two types of stories. There's the ones that just evaporate in 24 hours, and then there's the ones that get pinned to the top of your profile. And then there's IGTV. So can you speak to the strengths and weaknesses, or how you would utilize each one of those separately?
Definitely. IGTV, we'll start off with, that just product came out about a year ago, and it didn't take off as much as they really wanted it to be. They wanted it to be a competitor to YouTube, so people were watching longer form content on Instagram and not going over to YouTube. I still think it's a really amazing opportunity if you have seen people engage with that kind of content. So if you have YouTube video or longer video that you have within your own content library, you could always post on there. It's always good to be highlighted on IGTV, but I think where people are spending most of their time is, again, in the stories. It's really low friction. You just click, 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 as opposed to watching for 2 to 3 minutes. The highlight section is really where you could take some motivational aspects or educational content and keep that there always. So when people are coming to your page, they can learn more about what you're doing, especially for these real estate deals. Maybe you could talk about what you've learned in the field, where you're trying to go, and some of your hopes for why you would want to connect. Then on the grid itself, that's what stays there long term. So really crafting content that A, aligns with your target audience, and then B, shows off what your goals are and who you are itself, because it's not just professional, because people are not coming to Instagram to totally see very professional content. They want to be, have a human relationship and have real content.
Yeah, that's a big thing, isn't it? That one has to become accustomed to and comfortable with sharing one's day-to-day life, right? The kind of things that normally you might not want anybody to see, or not be, unshaven, unkempt, suits, right?
Yeah, totally.
Kind of your normal stuff. It's uncommon, but this is what you're talking about is desirable on Instagram because it creates a relationship with one's prospects, for want of a better term.
Definitely. And what you always want to be doing, and I do this for myself, it's, who's looking at my stories? Who are these kinds of people who are looking at it? Because you can see the data and who's looking at them. And how do I want to present myself to these kinds of people? So, you want to be authentic, but you don't want to be, on the beach doing cake stands if you're in your 40s and, you have your wife at home and you're at a conference and God knows what. So you always want to be aware of how you're presenting your personal brand, because these are all going to shape yourself to creating long-term deals with the people that are looking at your content itself.
Okay, so very interesting. All right, so now you being an expert in this have glossed over a very important distinction because it's second nature to you. So you use two terms. One is stories and one is highlights. So help me understand exactly what is the distinction between those two functions on Instagram.
Definitely. So I think the best people who use highlights are more like fashion bloggers and lifestyle bloggers and mommy bloggers.
No,
And
but
they use
what are they? What actually are they?
I know. I'll get to it in a second.
Okay. Sorry.
So they use it because they can take content from their stories, and instead of it disappearing in 10 seconds, they can save it on their highlights. So what they can do is put it on food as a category would be a highlight. Products that you love could be a highlight. Books you read could be a highlight. And that content has already been shown in your stories itself. It just now stays there long term, so anybody who goes on your page can see it. So it's all your story content, but just saved, and it didn't just go away after 24 hours.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So let's drill down on that a little bit. So the idea of a story is, gasp, that I might hit record, right, with my phone. I'm on a job site or something, and I just, hey, check this out, look at this, and I record something and put it into a story. That then disappears after 24 hours. But during that 24 hours, presumably, can I go back now and look at all the stories that I've put out there, all those clips that I've put out, and see which ones gained the greatest traction, and then grab those and put them into highlights? Can I do that? Or once?
Definitely.
Okay. So
definitely. And it's within your app, you can just say, save all my story content, and you can have that a year later. So even people will add in story and highlights like 6 months down the line. It's all, as long as you press save, then all of your stories content is within app.
Now, but what about the engagement that you got? So if it's only lasting 24 hours, I'm going to see a certain amount of engagement. What I'm asking is, can you 6 months later see how much engagement an individual story got 6 months ago?
No, nowadays it's only within those 24 hours. So you want to look at who is looking at your content within that 24-hour period, and you can direct message if people are if you want to talk to them about it or anything. And now they have emojis as well that easily make it easy for you to just click, hi, 100, those emojis that you can just click when you're consuming the content as well.
Okay. All right. So actually all I was getting at was, is there any way to use stories to decide which ones are the best ones for highlights?
Yeah, and it's the content that has the most people seeing it, or the content you want to highlight itself that makes the most sense for you.
Anyway, at the end of the day, right? Okay, all right. So let's switch and let's talk about partner and influencer marketing, because I know this is another one of your strong points. So what does that involve exactly?
Definitely. Well, I think influencer marketing is huge right now. It's going to be like a $20 billion market by 2020. You can look across any vertical, and there's influencers, and these influencers are making tons and tons of money. But I think the problem that we see within any kind of industry is that people only think you could have these really big influencers, Kylie Jenners of the world, and those are the kind of influencers out there. And influencers are within any vertical themselves throughout these different, whatever your interest or niche are. And again, just to break it down for your audience, influencers are people who have a lot of followers. They work with brand deals. They create their own content daily, and they're really creating their own media empires all through the platform of Instagram and then maybe YouTube.
But there's also nano influencers as well, right? How does that work, and what's that idea?
Yeah, so kind of going back to this idea, a lot of brands were working with these influencers who would have like 200 to 300,000 followers. They'd be spending a lot of money and they weren't seeing the return on investment for that. So nowadays, and this kind of goes back to really basic marketing, it's just word of mouth from your friends. So if you have 1,000 followers, 1,000 to 5,000 followers, you're considered a nano influencer, and you're not getting huge brand deals, but your algorithm and your engagement from your own audience is really impactful. So if I, who is in that nano influencer category, post that I really love this new shoes, maybe 10% of my audience will go and click on it and want to learn more because they trust my opinion, as opposed to seeing a huge celebrity saying they like it and then just scrolling through because they know it's, ad sponsored.
Okay, so how do I find influencers or nano influencers? I mean, what's the process of, first of all, identifying them? Particularly, again, keep in mind the audience, right? Real estate sponsors wanting to raise money online, right? This group. So how does one identify influencers and nano influencers? And then how do you engage them, right? I mean, somebody that has 1,000 followers may not even contemplate getting a call from somebody saying, will you talk about my shop or what, my deal, whatever it is.
Totally. So just to start, like you look, 1,000 to 10,000 is nano influencers, 10,000 to about 50,000 is micro influencers, and then 50,000 to the millions are just big influencers. So those numbers change. You might want to research them more online. So just to start off with that. Then within, there's many ways to find influencers. We'll talk about the first way is through like agencies, and those are those are huge deals. So those are going to be, $10,000 to $50,000 deals working with big influencers. That's when their agents come in and their managers come in. But your audience is probably going to be thinking more about the nano influencers and the way to find them more organically. So what you would do is probably use hashtags to find them. And the hashtags, hashtag real estate, hashtag developer, hashtag real estate development, all of that kind of stuff. So what you want to be doing is really trying to find those that align with your brand. And then it's as easy as direct messaging. So so that's what you just can do is they usually have an email in their bio, or you can just direct message them and ask, to hop on a phone call and see where that would go.
That's interesting.
So
Okay.
again, your audience is probably looking at videos. Yeah, and just reach out and see what happens. I think that's the best way to do it.
Now, for somebody who is spending most of their life trying to find real estate deals and negotiate them, these are huge sometimes tens of millions of dollars deals. To be calling somebody on Instagram is not necessarily what they imagine spending their day doing, right? It's a big step to leverage the power of the internet and of online marketing to walk away from the lunchtime pitch meeting, which is so familiar, that is directly with a potential investor, to go to a nano marketer in the hopes of reaching somebody like that, down the line. How do people automate and simplify this process, or subcontract it even?
Yeah, I would find the middle ground. And I think the middle ground is working with these tech products that help you just find the influencers that are in your space. Captivate is one of them. It was called Refluence. I think now it's Inspire IQ. But there's these kind of tech platforms that really help you find your right niche, and they'll broker the deals, and there's a little friction. You're not working with big managers. So I think that would be the middle ground, especially if you have budget to work with, is to really be working with these tech platforms that can help you find the right people for you. And they've already vetted these influencers as well, just to make sure that they have reach, that their followers are real, and that they're executing properly.
That's really interesting, Kate. So they're tech platforms, but they're not automated. You are dealing with a human intermediary of some sort, are you?
No, it's almost like a Bumble, or you're just swiping back and forth and trying to find the right influencer. They put their profiles up, and you can read the profile itself and see if that's a match for you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm familiar. All right, like a marketplace for influencers.
Totally, that's exactly what it is. They're marketplaces for influencers.
Very interesting. Okay, perfect. And maybe afterwards you'd be kind enough to give me a few links that I can put in the show notes, including, of course, some links to whatever you have, your website, and whatever links you want me to include in the show notes. All right, so I tell you what, let's go ahead and let's keep it short today and maybe come back and do it again if that's okay. But what I'd like to do is to ask for any kind of high-level advice that you might want to give to somebody, particularly a real estate developer, right? You understand my market actually quite well, who is just starting out. What would be the most important thing just starting out that you would want to be keeping in mind going online?
Yeah, I think the key term is that you're just starting out. So you really just want to be trying it out, see what works, test your engagement, and see how comfortable you're feeling with it. Not every single platform in the world you have to be on. So if it's not working for you, don't try and double down on something that isn't showing any results. You know, it's all part of your marketing. If email marketing or direct mail or in person is working better for you, then do that. Don't just see any trend and think you have to be on it, but I would definitely give it a shot and see if it's something comfortable for you, see if it's worth your time, and see what you can really do with it.
And what about for developers specifically? Any kind of insights or ideas that you think might kind of accelerate the process, particularly on Instagram?
I would just find similar people within your field, follow them, engage with them, and really be a human with it and see how you can connect and make the conversation go from Instagram to a phone call to a deal. So really just take it really high level from a human
All right.
perspective.
So let me ask you two more sign-off questions. One is, what has been the hardest lesson that you have learned online?
The hardest thing, I think, being a social media practitioner is that the algorithm is always changing. So anytime you're doing content, and that might be the hottest thing right now, like Facebook video, they might pivot real fast and do Facebook publishing, or Facebook groups are big. So you really can't be dependent upon a platform itself. You really have to be thinking high level about how you're creating content and how that's engaging an audience.
And final question for today, and that is, what are your key daily habits that make you successful online? Like, how much time do you spend? Give me the inside scoop to Kate Talbot, right?
Oh gosh. I don't know if I do it correctly. I don't know. I just try to be my own self and create content that makes me happy and share with others and just be who I am, and hopefully people like it. And if they don't like it, that's fine. But I just create content and I do it in my everyday. I don't really create a content calendar or anything that's, strategic. I just live my best life, and then it comes to light and people seem to like it.
That's crazy. It's crazy. So you use your phone and you video yourself doing stuff with your phone all the time, or like what do you do?
I was just at like South by Southwest for the last couple of days, and just like wherever I am, I'm capturing content, and I can take that content and maybe post on LinkedIn or just keep it in Instagram stories. But there's content all around us, and it's how you look at the world. And if the world, you can create stories from anything that's in front of you. And there's always like GIFs and, add-ons onto any of these kind of content you're creating. So you can take, I was at a quantum physics talk, which, probably boring to 99% of the world. It was boring to me too. But, I made it fun because I was adding on like polls. Does anybody think I would understand this? Or like, just really fun stuff. So you can be anywhere and create content that it just makes things fun. And that's just, I think, how you can live your life.
That's hilarious. Well, let me ask you, I'm just curious, how much time do you actually spend editing the video that you produce? Do you just bung it out there raw, or do you sit down and clean it up before you put it out?
Yeah, I mean, I've been online for so long and creating content that I know what works and what doesn't. So I am just really confident with like doing a selfie video and posting that up. So for me, it's like second nature, but I'm assuming for most people, it's not. But I would just say my advice also across the board is always get content up. Don't make it perfect. People don't expect perfection, but be in the zeitgeist of what's happening at the time and create content and get it. Because in this day and age, it's more important to be seen than have it perfect.
Phenomenal. Thanks so very much, Kate. What a pleasure. Thanks for your perseverance as well in getting through and doing video.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for having me on. It was a great conversation, and I want to hear more about what happens within your field. It's a whole different field to me, so it's really great to learn more about what everybody's doing within the social space.
All right, that was Kate Talbot, a Forbes contributor on social media marketing, and you can access links to this podcast at GowerCrowd.com, including some bonus episodes that pull out the highlights of my conversation with Kate into short clips. I'm also experimenting with social media, so in due course, I'll distribute the short episode highlights on 5 main platforms: Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just go to GowerCrowd.com where you'll find a bunch of links to those channels, and go ahead and subscribe on whichever platform you prefer to use. It'll be a great way to get direct access to these short highlights that will give you really these deep insights into social media marketing so that you can be more effective in raising capital yourself online. And while you're at GowerCrowd.com, go ahead and hit the Insights button top right and navigate to the podcasts, where you'll also find other resources for raising capital online. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I'm really thrilled that you have lasted all the way through to this sign off. Right? Thanks so much. This is Dr. Adam Gower signing off.